We have sales up a little bit at Ford, down at General Motors, like we talked about yesterday. Nissan's in trouble, Stellantis is in trouble, and Toyota and Honda both had fewer sales than anticipated.
Dealerships are in freefall, thousands face closure, and the car market as we know it may never recover. This isn't a headline, it's reality. The entire system is unraveling, lots overflowing with unsold cars, manufacturers scrambling to save face, and dealerships caught in the crossfire. But what's worse? The real storm hasn't even hit yet. This isn't just a bad year, it's a full-blown crisis that could change how you buy cars forever. Why are dealerships suddenly struggling to survive when cars are everywhere? What does this mean for the deals you're hunting for right now? And how will this ripple across the entire car industry and affect your next purchase? Stay with us, because what's happening today will impact your wallet, your choices, and the future of the automotive world. The current state of chaos. Picture this, a dealership lot packed with shiny new vehicles, row after row of cars and trucks, just sitting there, collecting dust. Tacomas, Broncos, even high-demand EVs like the Hummer. What's the problem? They're not moving. In a normal market, dealerships are bustling hubs of activity, but now they're ghost towns. The inventory is stacking up and the pressure is mounting. Manufacturers like Stellantis are slashing production by hundreds of thousands of units. Why? Because the demand just isn't there. And this isn't some isolated blip. It's happening across the board. Ford, Toyota, Nissan, they're all feeling the heat. The situation has become so dire that layoffs are sweeping the industry. Stellantis alone has announced plans to cut over 1,000 jobs. And while manufacturers blame poor market conditions, it's clear that this crisis is about more than just a slowdown. It's a structural failure. Why is this happening? First, manufacturers overproduced. Coming out of the pandemic, automakers ramped up production, expecting a surge in demand, but they miscalculated. Rising inflation and higher interest rates made financing a car more expensive than ever. For many buyers, the dream of owning a new vehicle suddenly felt out of reach. Second, prices skyrocketed. Vehicles that were once considered affordable are now pushing the limits of what consumers can pay. A mid-sized truck that used to cost $30,000 is now closer to $45,000, and that's before dealer markups. Finally, consumer preferences are shifting. People want smaller, more efficient cars, but manufacturers are doubling down on luxury SUVs and electric vehicles. And while EVs are the future, the market isn't ready to fully embrace them. The result? An industry caught in a perfect storm of high costs, mismatched priorities, and dwindling consumer confidence. What about the manufacturers? Let's talk about the manufacturers. If dealerships are the frontline casualties of this crisis, the automakers are the generals who led them into battle, and not necessarily to victory. For years, automakers have been betting big on luxury vehicles and SUVs. Think Grand Wagoneers priced at over $100,000. Sure, these models have high profit margins, but they're not what most buyers can afford right now. And yet, instead of scaling back, manufacturers doubled down. Take Toyota, for example. Known for reliability, the brand recently faced a major perception hit with its Tundra recall. Even though Toyota replaced engines and fixed the issue, the damage to consumer trust lingers. Similarly, Ram, a brand synonymous with rugged reliability, has overtaken Ford as the most recalled automaker. These quality issues only deepen the crisis. Meanwhile, EVs, heralded as the industry's savior, aren't selling as expected. Despite the hype, the infrastructure isn't there, and the average consumer is still hesitant to take the plunge. So what happens? Unsold EVs pile up next to unsold trucks, leaving dealerships to bear the brunt of these missteps. Impact on dealerships today and now. Let's bring it back to the dealerships, the heart of this crisis. These businesses operate on a razor-thin margin in the best of times, relying on fast inventory turnover to stay afloat. But right now, cars are sitting on lots for months, even years. And for dealerships, time is money, literally. Every unsold car represents a cost. Dealerships don't own the vehicles outright, they're financed through something called a floor plan. This means they're essentially paying interest on every unsold car, and the longer it sits, the more it costs. In today's market, this has become an unsustainable burden. To cope, dealerships are slashing prices. It's not uncommon to see markdowns of $5,000 or even $8,000. Some are even turning to creative tactics, like shifting unsold inventory into service loaner fleets just to make the numbers look better. But these are short-term fixes for a long-term problem. And here's the kicker, some dealerships won't survive this. We're already seeing closures in smaller markets, and if things don't change, larger chains could be next. This isn't just a tough year for dealerships, it's a reckoning. Overproduction and underplanning. In the aftermath of the global pandemic, automakers found themselves navigating an uncharted landscape. Production lines that had been dormant for months roared back to life, with manufacturers scrambling to make up for lost time. The assumption? Demand would skyrocket as consumers returned to normalcy. The reality? A monumental miscalculation. Manufacturers overproduced vehicles at unprecedented levels. The numbers are staggering. In the year 2024, Stellantis alone slashed over 200,000 vehicles from its production schedule, but the damage was already done. Dealerships were flooded with inventory they couldn't move. The market's demand had shifted, but automakers hadn't adjusted their strategies quickly enough. Adding fuel to the fire was the overestimation of the electric vehicle revolution. While there's no doubt that electric vehicles are the future, automakers bet heavily on their immediate adoption. Billions were poured into the development and production of electric vehicles, but the infrastructure to support this shift, charging stations, affordable battery technology, and consumer education lagged far behind. This left many dealerships saddled with electric vehicles that consumers weren't ready to buy, sitting side by side with traditional gasoline-powered vehicles that had become too expensive for the average buyer. Post-pandemic, manufacturers also misread demand trends. They assumed that consumers would prioritize luxury and high-end models after the economic slump, leading to an overproduction of vehicles like luxury sport utility vehicles and premium trucks. The result? High-margin vehicles sat unsold, while consumers sought more affordable, practical options. This fundamental mismatch between production and demand became a ticking time bomb, with dealerships bearing the brunt of the explosion. The real issue wasn't just the volume of vehicles, but the disconnect between what manufacturers produced and what consumers wanted. Automakers were playing catch-up in a game where the rules had already changed, leaving dealerships as the casualties of their strategic missteps. Consumer trends are changing, and if you look at how people buy cars today versus 10 years ago, the transformation is remarkable. Traditional dealership models that once dominated the industry are losing relevance as buyers turn to online platforms. The shift is so profound that it's reshaping not only how cars are sold, but how they're perceived. Online car buying has exploded in popularity. Platforms that allow consumers to browse, compare, and even purchase vehicles without stepping foot in a dealership have seen tremendous growth. Why? Convenience is king. Buyers no longer want to haggle with salespeople or spend hours at a dealership. Instead, they prefer the transparency and simplicity of online transactions. For dealerships that rely on face-to-face interactions to close deals, this is a massive shift and a threat to their very survival. Another major factor is the growing demand for smaller, more efficient vehicles. As fuel prices fluctuate and environmental concerns grow, consumers are rethinking their priorities. Compact cars, hybrids, and even smaller trucks are becoming increasingly attractive, especially as cities become more congested and parking becomes a premium commodity. Manufacturers, however, have been slow to pivot, focusing instead on larger vehicles with higher profit margins. Affordability is also a driving force behind these changing trends. Higher interest rates and inflation have pushed monthly payments out of reach for many buyers. A vehicle that might have cost $30,000 a few years ago now comes with a price tag closer to $40,000, thanks to rising production costs and dealer markups. For consumers, this means rethinking their purchases or avoiding them altogether. The question now is whether dealerships can adapt to these trends. If they fail to embrace online sales models, cater to the demand for smaller and more affordable vehicles, and offer pricing structures that reflect current economic realities, they risk becoming obsolete. It's not just a challenge, it's an existential crisis. Quality issues and brand perception. Brand loyalty has always been a cornerstone of the automotive industry, but recent years have tested even the most loyal customers. Recalls and reliability issues have plagued some of the most trusted names in the market, shaking consumer confidence to its core. Take the example of Ram, a brand once celebrated for its rugged dependability. Over the past year, Ram has overtaken Ford as the most recalled automaker, a dubious distinction that no manufacturer wants. The recalls span everything from faulty airbags to transmission issues, leaving consumers questioning whether they can trust a brand that was once synonymous with quality. Toyota, another name associated with reliability, has also faced challenges. The Toyota Tundra, a flagship truck, was hit with a major recall involving engine failures. Although Toyota acted swiftly, replacing engines and addressing the issue, the damage to its reputation lingered. For many buyers, the perception of reliability is as important as the reality, and once that trust is broken, it's hard to rebuild. Recalls aren't just a hassle for consumers, they're a financial burden for dealerships as well. Vehicles that have been recalled often sit on lots for months, waiting for parts or repairs. Meanwhile, potential buyers steer clear, unwilling to take a chance on a vehicle with a tarnished record. The impact extends beyond the vehicles themselves. Consumers are increasingly concerned about resale value, especially as quality issues become more common. A truck or sport utility vehicle that costs $50,000 today could lose significant value if its brand is plagued by recalls or reliability concerns. For buyers, this is a risk they're not willing to take. Imagine this scenario. You invest in a brand new truck, excited to drive it off the lot. 2 months later, you receive a letter in the mail. It's part of a massive recall. Suddenly, your shiny new purchase feels like a liability. That's the reality many consumers are facing today, and it's changing how they approach buying decisions. The financial squeeze. The financial pressures facing dealerships are immense. At the heart of the issue is the cost of maintaining inventory, a challenge that has grown exponentially as unsold vehicles pile up. Dealerships don't outright own the vehicles on their lots. Instead, they finance them through floor plans, essentially paying interest on every unsold car. In a healthy market, this system works well. Cars move quickly and the interest costs are manageable. But in today's sluggish market, vehicles are sitting on lots for months, and those interest payments are adding up. It's a financial burden that many dealerships can no longer bear. Compounding the problem is the lack of incentives from manufacturers. In the past, automakers would offer rebates or discounts to help dealerships move inventory, but in the current climate, these incentives have been scaled back, leaving dealerships to shoulder the cost of markdowns themselves. When a dealership slashes $8,000 off the price of a truck, that loss often comes directly out of their bottom line. Profit margins are shrinking, and for many dealerships, the math simply doesn't add up. The cost of maintaining unsold inventory, coupled with reduced incentives and rising operational expenses, has pushed some dealerships to the brink of closure. Smaller, family-owned businesses are particularly vulnerable, as they lack the financial reserves of larger dealership chains. The implications are far-reaching. As more dealerships close, consumers may find themselves with fewer options, particularly in rural areas. This could lead to longer travel distances to purchase or service a vehicle, a significant inconvenience for buyers. The financial squeeze is also impacting the broader industry. Layoffs are becoming more common as dealerships cut costs to stay afloat. Sales teams, service technicians, and administrative staff are all feeling the effects. For an industry that relies on a delicate balance of production, sales, and service, the current crisis is pushing every link in the chain to its breaking point. What's clear is that the financial pressures facing dealerships are not going away anytime soon. Unless significant changes are made, both at the manufacturer and dealership levels, the current model is unsustainable. And as the financial squeeze tightens, the survival of traditional dealerships hangs in the balance. How this affects buyers. The seismic shifts in the car market aren't just abstract concepts, they are creating tangible opportunities and risks for consumers. For buyers, the current crisis presents a unique moment to navigate the car market with more leverage than they've had in years. First, let's talk about the opportunities. With dealership lots overflowing, unsold vehicles are becoming liabilities, not assets. To mitigate their losses, dealerships are offering unprecedented price drops. You might walk onto a lot today and find markdowns of $5,000, $8,000, or even $10,000 on trucks and sport utility vehicles that were considered premium options just last year. For buyers willing to negotiate, this is a golden age. The abundance of inventory also means better negotiating power. Dealerships desperate to move vehicles are more likely to meet buyers halfway, or even all the way, on price. Add-ons like free maintenance packages, upgraded features, and extended warranties are suddenly on the table, sweetening the deal for savvy shoppers. Buyers who do their homework and understand market trends can walk away with significant savings. But it's not all good news. Older models might look like a bargain, but they come with hidden costs. Vehicles from prior production production years often lack the latest technology and safety features. A 2023 model might save you a few $1,000s up front, but in the long run, its outdated features could reduce its resale value or limit compatibility with emerging tech trends like over-the-air updates for infotainment systems. Another risk is the perception of reliability. Vehicles sitting unsold for extended periods may raise red flags for potential buyers. Why didn't these cars sell? Was it a quality issue, a recall, or simply a mismatch with market preferences? These questions linger, and for some consumers, the answers might not be reassuring. For buyers, the key is balance. Take advantage of the deals, but do so with an eye on the long-term implications of your purchase. Research, ask questions, and don't get swept up in the allure of a bargain without considering what comes next. The future of deals and pricing. While the current crisis offers short-term benefits for consumers, it's important to recognize that these deals won't last forever. In fact, the very dynamics that are driving discounts today could lead to higher prices in the future. Let's break it down. The current glut of inventory is a result of overproduction, but automakers are already making moves to correct this. Production cuts are happening across the board, with manufacturers like Stellantis and Ford scaling back their output to align with waning demand. Once the supply of vehicles stabilizes, the market will return to equilibrium, and with equilibrium comes higher prices. Think about it this way, discounts exist because dealerships are in panic mode. They need to clear their lots to make room for new models, and they're willing to take losses to do so. But once those lots are cleared and inventory levels normalize, the pressure to offer deep discounts will disappear. For buyers, this means that the deals available today are unlikely to be replicated in the future. There's also the matter of inflation and rising production costs. Materials like lithium for electric vehicle batteries, microchips for advanced driver assistance systems, and even steel for basic construction are becoming more expensive. Automakers will eventually pass these costs onto consumers, leading to higher sticker prices for both traditional and electric vehicles. In the long term, the shift toward electric vehicles could also reshape pricing. Electric vehicles are currently expensive to produce, and while those costs are expected to decrease over time, the transition will be anything but smooth. Early adopters may continue to pay a premium, especially as manufacturers invest heavily in research, development, and infrastructure. The takeaway for consumers is clear. Enjoy the deals while they last. This market correction is a rare moment where buyers have the upper hand, but as the industry recalibrates, those dynamics are likely to shift back in favor of manufacturers and dealerships. If you're in the market for a vehicle, now is the time to act strategically. The rise of direct-to-consumer sales. The traditional dealership model has been a cornerstone of the automotive industry for decades, but that foundation is beginning to crack. One of the most significant disruptors in this space is the rise of direct-to-consumer sales, a model pioneered by brands like Tesla. With direct-to-consumer sales, buyers can purchase a vehicle online, bypassing the dealership entirely. The process is straightforward. You choose your model, customize your options, and place your order, all from the comfort of your home. The vehicle is then delivered directly to your doorstep, eliminating the need for haggling, hidden fees, or lengthy dealership visits. The appeal of this model lies in its transparency and convenience. Buyers know exactly what they're paying for, with no surprises or add-ons. For a generation of consumers accustomed to online shopping, this approach feels natural and efficient. However, this shift poses a significant threat to traditional dealerships. If more automakers adopt the direct-to-consumer model, the role of the dealership could be reduced or even eliminated altogether. Dealerships would lose their status as gatekeepers of the car buying process, becoming more like service centers for repairs and maintenance. But there are challenges to this model as well. Not every consumer is ready to embrace online car buying. Many still value the tactile experience of visiting a dealership, test driving a vehicle, and negotiating face-to-face. There's also the issue of trust. For large purchases like cars, some buyers feel more secure dealing with a person rather than a digital platform. The question now is whether the two models, traditional dealerships and direct-to-consumer sales, can coexist. It's a delicate balance, and one that will likely vary by brand and region. What's clear, though, is that the rise of direct-to-consumer sales is forcing the industry to adapt, and the dealerships that fail to evolve may find themselves left behind. Industry-wide implications. The current crisis is reshaping the automotive industry in ways that will be felt for years to come. For manufacturers, dealerships, and consumers alike, the road ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear: change is inevitable. One of the most significant shifts is the focus on affordability. The days of high-margin luxury vehicles dominating the market may be coming to an end. Automakers are beginning to realize that their future lies in meeting the needs of everyday consumers, not just high-income buyers. This means more investment in compact cars, hybrid models, and affordable electric vehicles. For dealerships, the future is murkier. Smaller, family-owned dealerships may struggle to survive, leading to a wave of mergers and acquisitions. Larger dealership chains could dominate the market, leveraging economies of scale to weather economic fluctuations. However, this consolidation could also reduce competition, limiting options for consumers in certain areas. The transition to electric vehicles is another major factor shaping the industry. As automakers ramp up production of electric vehicles, they will need to address challenges like charging infrastructure, battery recycling, and consumer education. Dealerships will play a crucial role in this transition, acting as hubs for charging and maintenance. But the question remains, will dealerships adapt quickly enough to stay relevant? Finally, there's the issue of direct sales and online platforms. As more automakers explore direct-to-consumer models, the traditional dealership may become an endangered species. The industry will need to find a way to balance innovation with tradition, ensuring that consumers have access to both convenience and personal service. The car market in 10 years will look very different from what it does today. The changes we're seeing now are just the beginning of a larger transformation that will redefine how vehicles are made, sold, and driven. For consumers, this is both an exciting and uncertain time. The decisions made by manufacturers and dealerships in the coming years will shape the future of mobility and the opportunities available to buyers. What manufacturers must do. The survival of the automotive industry hinges on the actions manufacturers take now. The days of flooding the market with high-margin luxury vehicles and overestimating consumer demand are gone. Automakers must pivot to strategies that prioritize sustainability, affordability, and consumer trust. First, manufacturers need to focus on aligning production with actual consumer demand. The overproduction that has plagued the industry in recent years cannot continue. Automakers should use data-driven models to predict market needs more accurately, ensuring that production levels match what consumers are willing and able to buy. This approach would prevent the buildup of unsold inventory that has caused financial strain on dealerships and tarnished brand reputations. Second, investing in quality is non-negotiable. Recalls and reliability issues have eroded consumer trust in even the most established brands. Automakers must prioritize rigorous testing and quality control processes to ensure that vehicles meet the high standards buyers expect. A single recall can damage a brand's reputation for years, and rebuilding that trust requires consistency and transparency. Manufacturers must also reevaluate their approach to electric vehicles. While the shift to electric vehicles is inevitable, the infrastructure to support widespread adoption remains underdeveloped. Automakers should partner with governments and private companies to expand charging networks and make electric vehicles more accessible to the average buyer. Affordability is key. Producing electric vehicles that are financially viable for middle-income families will determine how quickly the market transitions to this new era of transportation. Finally, automakers need to engage more directly with consumers. This includes improving customer support, offering clearer warranties, and embracing direct-to-consumer sales models where appropriate. Brands like Tesla have demonstrated that a streamlined buying experience can build loyalty and increase sales. Traditional manufacturers must adapt or risk losing relevance in an increasingly competitive market. The future of the automotive industry depends on smarter, more consumer-focused decision-making. The manufacturers that prioritize long-term sustainability over short-term profits will be the ones that thrive in the years to come. How dealerships can adapt. For dealerships, the message is clear: adapt or die. The traditional dealership model is under unprecedented pressure, and survival will require bold innovation and a willingness to break away from outdated practices. One of the most critical steps dealerships can take is embracing online sales. Buyers are increasingly turning to digital platforms for convenience and transparency, and dealerships that fail to meet this demand risk losing customers. A robust online presence, complete with detailed vehicle listings, transparent pricing, and seamless purchasing options, can bridge the gap between traditional and modern sales methods. Offering virtual tours, online financing applications, and delivery services will also set dealerships apart in a crowded market. Beyond online sales, dealerships must focus on creating unique in-person experiences that draw buyers back to their lots. This could include offering personalized consultations, test drive events, or even interactive workshops on new vehicle technologies. The goal is to make the dealership visit an engaging and informative experience, not just a transaction. Transparent pricing is another area where dealerships must improve. Hidden fees and aggressive upselling tactics are driving buyers away. Offering upfront, no haggle pricing can rebuild trust and appeal to consumers who are tired of the traditional back and forth negotiation process. Coupled with creative incentives like free maintenance packages or loyalty discounts, this approach can help dealerships retain customers in a competitive environment. Finally, dealerships should embrace their role as service hubs in the transition to electric vehicles. By investing in training for electric vehicle maintenance and installing charging stations on site, dealerships can position themselves as essential players in the electric vehicle ecosystem. This not only generates additional revenue, but also builds trust with consumers navigating the shift to electric transportation. The road ahead for dealerships is challenging, but it is not insurmountable. Those that innovate, embrace technology, and prioritize customer satisfaction will not only survive, but thrive in the evolving automotive landscape.